Everyone in the city knew the rule: be inside before midnight. It wasn't a law passed by a council or a mayor. It was a fundamental truth, as certain as gravity or the rising sun. No one remembered why. Not really. The orgy was lost to time, buried under layers of ingrained habit and unspoken fear. It was just a fact of life here. You didn't test midnight. You could feel the city holding its breath as the hour approached. At 11:58 p.m., the streets, once bustling with life, would undergo a frantic, almost panicked transformation. Shopkeepers would slam down their heavy metal gates with a deafening clang that echoed through the emptying avenues. Apartment lights would wink out, one by one, plunging entire blocks into a premature darkness. Cars, suddenly desperate, would speed through intersections, their tires squealing like frightened animals fleeing a predator. By 11:59, the transformation was complete. Silence. A profound, heavy silence that swallowed every other sound. The city didn't just have a curfew, it had a lock. And then, precisely as the clock struck 12, it happened. A single, sharp, metallic clang would ripple through the entire city. A sound so synchronized it felt like the world itself was snapping shut. Every door sealed at once. The thick steel of apartment doors, the glass fronts of stores, even the doors of cars left on the street. Simultaneously, every window would fog over with a thin, shimmering metallic film, obscuring the view both in and out. It was like a layer of quicksilver spreading across the glass, turning every home into an isolated, reflective box. And your phone. The signal would drop instantly to 1 bar. Always 1 bar. Never 0. It was a taunt, a deliberate reminder that you weren't disconnected. You were being watched. The first night I saw it, I was late. It was a chain of mundane disasters. The train was delayed by an unscheduled stop. My phone, which I'd forgotten to charge, died in my pocket. I was just 2 blocks from my apartment building, close enough to feel the false comfort of home. Then the locks hit. That city-wide clang echoed in my bones. I heard my own panicked breath, loud and ragged in the sudden, oppressive quiet. I ran. I threw my shoulder against the door of my own building. It was like hitting solid steel. I tried the doors of the neighboring businesses, yanking on handles, pounding on the glass. Nothing. I stumbled over to a small bakery on the corner. The lights were still on inside, casting a warm, inviting glow. I could see people in there, frozen in place. A baker holding a tray. A couple sitting at a small table. They weren't moving. They weren't even blinking. They just stared out at me, their faces blank. Then, slowly, in perfect unison, they shook their heads. A silent, unified denial. It was a look of pity, of finality. They knew. That's when the city began to change. A low hum started, a deep, resonant frequency that seemed to vibrate up from the concrete itself. It wasn't a sound you just heard. You felt it in your chest, in your teeth. The streetlights, which had been a normal white, flickered and dimmed to a deep, menacing red, painting the empty streets in a bloody glow. And then I saw something move in the intersections. It wasn't fast. It wasn't loud. It was deliberate, methodical. My heart hammered against my ribs as I realized every security camera on every pole, every building, had rotated. They were all pointed directly at me, following my every step. A cold dread washed over me. I remembered the old, hushed warnings, the stories whispered by grandparents to frighten children into obedience. They say if you're caught outside after midnight, you don't die. You're processed. Suddenly, a crackle of static erupted from a public address speaker on a nearby pole. A distorted, broken voice sliced through the silence. Remain calm. Non-compliant entities will be corrected. Entities. That's what it called me. Not a person. Not a citizen. An entity. Something to be corrected. The sound of footsteps began approaching, but they were wrong. It wasn't the sound of shoes on pavement. It was a heavy, rhythmic scraping. Not human. I scrambled for cover, diving between 2 parked cars. pressing myself against the cold metal. That's when I saw it emerge from the crimson haze. It was tall, impossibly so, and its limbs were bent at wrong, unnatural angles. Its skin, if you could call it that, looked like a fusion of rough concrete and exposed, tangled wires. It had no face. Just a smooth, polished surface where a face should be. And in that reflective void, I could see the distorted images of street signs and the red glow of the lights. It stopped just inches from the car I was hiding behind. I held my breath, my entire body trembling. It paused, as if sensing my presence. Then, the streetlight directly above me flickered. It switched from red to a brilliant, piercing green. A mechanical voice, devoid of any emotion, spoke, seeming to come from the creature itself. "You are not registered indoors." The thing moved. A limb of wire and concrete extended towards me with a grinding, metallic screech. I tried to scream. I opened my mouth and pushed with all the air in my lungs, but no sound came out. It was as if the city itself, the very air, absorbed the noise, choked it before it could ever form. The next thing I knew, I heard the sound of birds. Quiet, morning birds. The red glow is gone, replaced by the soft, gray light of dawn. The locks released with a gentle click, a sound of permission. Doors opened. People stepped out onto the sidewalks, yawning, stretching, starting their day as if nothing had happened. There was no blood on the streets, no signs of a struggle, nobody. There were just fewer people. You could feel the new gaps in the city's population, a subtle but palpable emptiness. That afternoon, new posters went up on community boards and telephone poles. Missing persons. I looked at the photos. They were of people I'd seen just the day before, but the pictures looked off, wrong. Their eyes were gone, not physically removed, but blurred, smudged into an unrecognizable haze. It was as if the city, having processed them, no longer recognized them as ever having been part of it. Tonight. I'm watching the clock again. My own clock, on my own wall. The numbers feel like a countdown to an execution. It's 11:57. I'm inside. I'm safe. But my heart just stopped, because I just heard a click, the sound of my own front door locking itself from the outside. 3 minutes early, and a familiar chime just began to echo from the street below. The midnight chime.